I spent $20,000 on a vacation in Bora Bora with my kids. Money I'd scraped together by selling my late wife's wedding ring, pawning my tools, emptying every account I had. When I walked up to my children at LAX airport with my boarding pass in hand, my son Kevin's face went pale. Not happy to see you pale. Horror pale. Dad? His voice was tight. What are you doing here? Same thing you are, I said. Catching our flight to Bora Bora. Remember? The family vacation I'm paying for? That's when Kevin stepped closer and said the words that would start my $12 million revenge. Excuse me, he told the airline agent, loud enough for everyone to hear. This man isn't with our group. But my daughter Ashley took it further, much further. Sir, she said to security, this man has been stalking our family. He's mentally unstable. I stood there, hands shaking, watching 50 strangers turn to stare at the dangerous old man. Parents pulled their children away. Ashley clutched my 3-month-old granddaughter like I was some kind of predator. Then she said the words that would cost her everything. We don't have any relationship with this man. He's nobody to us. Nobody. After 32 years of being their father. My name is Rick Sullivan. I'm 68 years old, and I thought I was taking my children on the trip of their dreams. Instead, I was about to give them the most expensive lesson of their lives. Some mistakes cost more than money can buy. This one was about to cost them $12 million they never knew existed. But before I tell you how a family vacation became a final test, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button because you're going to want to hear how this betrayal ends. Let me take you back to where this really started. 1991. Margaret had just passed from cancer, and I was alone with 2 kids who needed everything. Kevin was 8, Ashley was 5. I worked double shifts at Sullivan Plumbing, came home with dirt under my nails and exhaustion in my bones. But every night I'd sit on their beds and promise them something. Daddy will always take care of you, I'd whisper in the dark. No matter what happens, you'll never have to worry. I meant it. God help me, I meant every word. Kevin would ask why we couldn't have a bigger house like his friends. Ashley would wonder why Daddy's clothes always smelled like pipes and grease. I'd tell them the same thing. We have everything we need. Love doesn't cost money. I taught them to fish with bent hooks and discount bait. Took them camping in our backyard because I couldn't afford Yellowstone. Made pancakes for dinner when the grocery money ran short. They seemed happy then. They'd hug my legs when I came home, fight over who got to sit next to me at dinner. But here's the thing nobody knew. I chose to live simply, but it wasn't because I had to. The calloused hands, the modest house, the careful spending, that was all part of something bigger, something Margaret and I had planned before she got sick. A test of character that would take decades to complete. If only they knew what I'd been hiding all those years. 1995. Kevin was 12. Ashley was 9. Sullivan Plumbing had grown bigger than I'd ever imagined. What started as me in a rusty van had become the largest plumbing contractor in eastern Massachusetts. Corporate chains were buying up small businesses left and right, and they wanted mine. The offer came on a Tuesday morning, $15 million, cash. I stared at that check for an hour. Enough money to buy a mansion, send both kids to Harvard, travel the world. Enough to never worry about anything ever again. But Margaret and I had talked about this possibility during her final months. Rick, she'd whispered from her hospital bed, promise me something. If you ever get rich, don't just give it to them. Make them earn it. See who they really are first. Her hand was so thin I could feel every bone. Promise me you'll test them, Rick. Find out if they love you or just tolerate you. I promised. And I kept that promise. I took the $15 million and put most of it into investments. Told the kids I'd sold the business for a small amount to pay for Mom's medical bills. Kept working as a regular employee for the new owners. Drove the same truck, lived in the same house, shopped at the same discount stores. Margaret made me promise one thing before she died. That promise would eventually cost my children everything they thought they deserved. I thought I knew my children. I was wrong. The cancer diagnosis came on a Monday. Pancreatic, stage 4. 6 months if I was lucky, the doctor said. Maybe less. I sat in that sterile office, staring at the x-rays that showed my death sentence, and all I could think about was Margaret's words. Find out if they love you or just tolerate you. 30 years had passed since I sold the business. The money had grown. $12 million now, sitting in accounts my children knew nothing about. They thought their old man lived on a modest pension, drove a beat-up Chevy, shopped at Walmart to save pennies. They didn't know I could afford anything I wanted. The doctor kept talking about treatment options and quality of life, but I wasn't listening anymore. In my mind, I was designing something Margaret would have understood, something she'd have approved of, a test. One final chance to see if the children I'd raised, sacrificed everything for, actually loved the man who'd given them life. The Bora Bora vacation had been Ashley's dream since college. She'd show me pictures sometimes, back when she still visited regularly. "Someday, Dad," she'd say, "someday I'll take you somewhere like this." That someday was about to arrive, but not the way she expected. I had $12 million to leave behind, but first I needed to know who deserved it. That's when I designed the final test. The plan was simple. I'd surprise them with the trip of their dreams. Bora Bora, first class, the works. $20,000 of my supposed pension money, more than they thought I made in 6 months. I'd watch how they reacted, how they treated me, whether they included me or pushed me away. If they showed love, real love, they'd inherit everything when I was gone. If they showed me what they really thought of their old man, well, St. Jude Children's Hospital needed donations. I started liquidating things quietly. Sold Margaret's wedding ring to a pawn shop, the one Ashley had never bothered asking about. Pawned my tools, the ones Kevin used to play with as a boy. Emptied my checking account, my savings, even my emergency fund. The kids noticed me being more careful with money. Kevin mentioned it to his wife. Dad's getting really cheap in his old age. Ashley rolled her eyes when I asked if she had a coupon for a restaurant. They thought I was becoming one of those penny-pinching old men who hoard Social Security checks. They had no idea I was betting everything on one last chance to feel loved by the people who mattered most. The tickets were booked. The rooms were reserved. 3 weeks later, we'd all be in paradise together. Or so I thought. The first warning sign came 3 weeks before departure, when Kevin forgot to mention he'd changed his flight time. I should have seen it coming. The phone call from Kevin came on a Thursday evening, casual as discussing weather. "Hey, Dad, just wanted to give you a heads up. Ashley and I moved our flights to the morning departure. Better seats available, you know?" My stomach dropped. "What about my ticket?" "Oh, yours is still the afternoon flight. Sorry, they couldn't change it. But don't worry, we'll see you at the resort. $20,000. That's what this trip was costing me. Money I'd scraped together by selling everything that mattered. Margaret's jewelry box, the wooden one I'd made her for our first anniversary. My father's watch. Even my lucky fishing rod, the one that had fed us through the lean years. I was betting everything on one last chance to matter to them. But as I hung up that phone, something cold settled in my chest. The separate flights weren't an accident. This was deliberate exclusion, packaged as convenience. I pulled out the receipt from my dresser drawer. $20,000 in transactions, spread over 3 months. Pawn shops, jewelry stores, cash advances. Each receipt represented something I'd loved, something I'd sacrificed for this moment. I told myself this was just a vacation. But deep down, I knew it was Judgment Day. That night, I barely slept. The next few weeks should have been exciting. Planning activities, checking weather, counting down days. Instead, I found myself watching my children for signs I'd been missing. Kevin barely returned my calls. When he did answer, his responses were clipped, distant. "Yeah, Dad, we're all set. No need to coordinate anything, just show up." Ashley was worse. She'd end our conversations with reminders about how sophisticated Bora Bora was, how I should try to blend in with the other guests, how important it was that her family make a good impression. I started to notice things I'd ignored before, how Kevin introduced me to his colleagues as my father, with the same tone he'd use for an uncomfortable medical condition, how Ashley never invited me to family dinners anymore, claiming baby Emma was too delicate for visitors. But I pushed those thoughts away. I told myself this was just adult children being busy with their own lives. Normal stuff, nothing personal. I told myself this was just a vacation. But deep down, I knew it was Judgment Day. 3 weeks became 2 weeks, then 1. I packed my old suitcase, the same one Margaret and I had used for our honeymoon 40 years ago. Put in my best shirt. The khakis Ashley had bought me last Christmas, and one extra item that would change everything. The first warning sign came 3 weeks before departure. I was supposed to meet Ashley for lunch to go over resort details. We'd planned to discuss dinner reservations, excursions, maybe coordinate some family time by the pool. Simple stuff. Normal vacation planning between a father and daughter. She canceled 30 minutes before we were supposed to meet. "Rain check, Dad? Ryan thinks Emma might be getting a cold." But I drove by their house anyway, just to drop off some baby clothes I'd bought for Emma. That's when I saw them loading suitcases into Ryan's BMW. Not baby gear for a sick child. Vacation luggage. They were meeting with someone. A travel agent, maybe. Making plans they didn't want me to know about. I sat in my truck across the street watching my daughter laugh with her husband and baby, and realized something that made my chest tight. This wasn't about Emma being sick. This was about them planning something I wasn't invited to. The lunch cancellation wasn't about a sick baby. It was about keeping me out of their real planning. I drove home and sat in my kitchen, staring at the Bora Bora brochures I'd collected. The photos looked different now. Less like a family destination, more like a place I'd be watching from the outside. But that was nothing compared to what happened next. By the time departure week arrived, my phone had gone silent. No check-ins from Kevin, no updates from Ashley, no questions about logistics or timing, nothing. I called Kevin's office Tuesday afternoon. His secretary said he was in meetings all day. I called Ashley's cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. Wednesday. I tried again. Same thing. Thursday morning, I drove to Ashley's house. The driveway was empty. Neighbors said they'd left for a family trip the night before. That's when the real panic set in. My flight was still booked for Saturday afternoon. Their flights were Saturday morning. But if they'd already left... I called the resort directly, spoke to the concierge in my best customer voice. "This is Rick Sullivan. I'm checking on our family reservation for this weekend." Long pause. Keyboard clicking. "Sir, I show a reservation for Mr. and Mrs. Kevin Sullivan and Mr. and Mrs. Ryan Brooks, but there's no Rick Sullivan on the booking." The phone went heavy in my hand. "Are you sure? This is a family vacation." "I'm sorry, sir. Would you like me to check if they can add you to the reservation?" I hung up without answering. I gave them every chance to prove me wrong, but some tests can only have one result. The second escalation happened at Kevin's law firm Christmas party, 6 months earlier. I should have recognized it as the warning it was. Ashley had called me that afternoon. "Dad, Kevin's having this work thing tonight. You should come. Show the family unity, you know?" I was surprised. Kevin hadn't mentioned it when we talked the week before, but I was happy to be included. I put on my best shirt, the navy one without any stains, and drove downtown to the fancy hotel where his firm held their events. The moment I walked into that marble lobby, I knew I'd made a mistake. Wall-to-wall lawyers in $1,000 suits, wives in cocktail dresses that cost more than my monthly rent, crystal chandeliers, champagne glasses, live jazz music, the kind of place where my calloused hands and department store clothes stuck out like a neon sign. But I found Kevin by the bar and walked over with a smile. "Hey, son, thanks for inviting me." His face went pale. "Not happy to see you pale. Horror pale." "Dad, what are you—" "I didn't—" He looked around quickly, then grabbed my elbow. "Let me introduce you to some people." But I heard him whisper to his wife Jennifer as we walked. 3 words that cut like glass. "Why is he here?" Then Kevin crossed a line I never thought he would. He spent the next hour introducing me as a family friend to his colleagues. Not his father. A family friend. I stood there in that marble lobby, watching my son lie about who I was, and something started dying inside me. "This is Rick," Kevin would say to his partners. "Old friend of the family." Each introduction was a small betrayal. Each handshake was a denial of 32 years of fatherhood. I watched him whisper to Jennifer between conversations, saw her nod sympathetically, like she understood the burden of having to explain me. The worst part wasn't the lying. It was the shame I saw in Kevin's eyes every time someone looked at my clothes, my hands, my obvious blue-collar background in that sea of white-collar wealth. I'd raised a boy who had grown up to be embarrassed by the man who sacrificed everything for him. Around 9 o'clock, I made an excuse about being tired and headed for the door. Kevin didn't try to stop me, just nodded and said, "Drive safe, Rick." Not Dad. Rick, as if we were just old neighbors saying goodbye. I walked to my truck in the hotel parking garage, surrounded by BMWs and Mercedes, and sat behind the wheel for 20 minutes. My hands were shaking, not from cold, but from the realization that my son saw me as something to hide. I saw him whisper to his wife, and I knew exactly what he said. Thank God he's leaving. But Kevin's betrayal was nothing compared to what Ashley would do to me 2 months later. The handmade crib incident happened in February. That's when I knew the test had to happen. Emma had been born 3 months earlier, and I'd been working on a surprise in my garage. A baby crib, made from maple wood, with hand-carved animals on the side rails. Took me 6 weeks, working every evening after dinner. My arthritic fingers weren't what they used to be, but I wanted my granddaughter to have something made with love, something that would last generations. I called Ashley on a Tuesday to arrange delivery. "I made something special for Emma," I said. "When's a good time to bring it over?" "Oh, Dad, you didn't have to do that. But sure, bring it by Saturday afternoon." Saturday, I loaded the crib into my truck bed, wrapped in old blankets to protect the finish, drove to Ashley's house in their upscale neighborhood, proud as I'd ever been of anything I'd built. Ashley met me at the front door before I could ring the bell, stepped outside, closing the door behind her. Didn't invite me in. I showed her the crib, pointed out the carved elephants and giraffes, the smooth finish, the sturdy construction that would hold Emma safely through toddlerhood. Ashley looked at it for maybe 10 seconds. "Dad, this is sweet, but it doesn't really match our nursery aesthetic. Emma's room has a very specific design theme, and this would just clash." That's when I knew the test had to happen. Clash. That's the word she used for 6 weeks of her father's love. I loaded that crib back into my truck without saying another word. Ashley stood in her doorway, not helping, not apologizing, just waiting for me to leave so she could get back to her aesthetic life. But as I drove home, something crystallized in my mind. This wasn't about money or social class or embarrassment. This was about something deeper, fundamental respect, basic human decency. The kind of love that doesn't care about aesthetics. That night, I pulled out a legal pad and started writing. Names, dates, incidents. A timeline of disrespect that went back years. Kevin's shame at the Christmas party. Ashley's excluding me from family dinners. The way they both talked to me like I was an obligation rather than their father. I'd been making excuses for them, telling myself they were just busy with their own lives. But the crib incident stripped away all my denial. They didn't just take me for granted. They were actively ashamed of me. I packed one extra item that would change everything when the Bora Bora test finally came. A small digital recorder, the kind private investigators use. 48-hour battery life, crystal clear audio quality. If they were going to humiliate me, I wanted evidence. If they were going to prove Margaret right about testing them, I wanted documentation. By March, I'd made all the reservations, spent all the money, prepared all the equipment. Now I just had to wait and see if my children would pass or fail the final test of their character. The taxi ride to Logan Airport should have been exciting. First vacation in 15 years. First time flying since Margaret's funeral. First time seeing Bora Bora, a place I'd dreamed about since watching travel shows as a kid. Instead, I sat in the back seat with dread pooling in my stomach like cold coffee. The driver tried making conversation. "Vacation?" "Family trip," I managed. "My kids and I are meeting in paradise." The words tasted like lies, even though they were technically true. I still believed they might surprise me. I was about to be surprised instead. Part of me hoped I was wrong about everything. Maybe the separate flights were really about seat availability. Maybe the lack of communication was just adult children being independent. Maybe Ashley's reaction to the crib was just new mother stress, not active rejection. Maybe they'd see me at the gate and smile, include me in their conversations, treat me like family instead of an unwanted stranger. I had my phone in one pocket, recording device in the other, backup battery pack in my carry-on. Every conversation would be documented, every interaction preserved, but I was still praying I'd never need any of it. The taxi pulled up to the departure terminal. Families everywhere hauling suitcases and herding kids and talking excitedly about tropical destinations. Normal families doing normal vacation things. I paid the driver and walked toward the entrance. Then I saw them at the gate, and everything became clear. They weren't waiting for me. They weren't even looking for me. Kevin and Ashley were standing at the check-in counter with their families, laughing about something, relaxed, happy, like people who didn't have a care in the world, like people who weren't expecting anyone else to join them. I walked over with my boarding pass in hand, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. "Hey kids, beautiful day for flying, huh?" Kevin's smile vanished the moment he saw me. Ashley's expression went from happy to annoyed in about half a second. "Dad," Kevin's voice was tight. "What are you doing here?" "Same thing you are, catching our flight to Bora Bora." I held up my boarding pass. "Remember? The family vacation I'm paying for?" The airline agent behind the counter was watching this exchange with professional curiosity. Other passengers were starting to notice the tension. Kevin stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Dad, there's been a misunderstanding. We changed our plans." "What kind of misunderstanding?" Ashley moved to Kevin's side, creating a united front. "We tried calling you," she said. "Your phone went straight to voicemail." That was a lie. I'd been checking my phone obsessively for 3 days. No missed calls, no messages. Kevin straightened up, speaking louder now. "Excuse me," he said to the airline agent. "This man isn't with our group." The desk agent looked confused, but what happened next was worse. Ashley raised her voice so other passengers could hear clearly. "Sir, this man has been stalking our family." The word stalking hit the crowded terminal like a gunshot. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. Parents pulled their children closer. My hands started shaking, not from fear, but from the realization that my own daughter was about to destroy me in front of 50 strangers. "Ashley, what are you talking about?" My voice sounded foreign, distant. She didn't look at me when she answered, just kept talking to the airline agent, voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "This man has severe mental health issues. He's been following us around claiming to be our father. We've asked him repeatedly to leave us alone." The recording device in my pocket was capturing every word, but all I could think about was the circle of strangers forming around us, watching my daughter paint me as a dangerous lunatic. Kevin nodded along with everything she said. My son, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike, helped with homework, walked to school for 6 years, standing there letting his sister call me mentally ill. "We're concerned for the safety of other passengers," Ashley continued. "Especially families with children." A security guard appeared from somewhere. Where do they always come from so fast? "Is there a problem here?" Ashley turned to him with tears in her eyes. Real tears. She was actually crying while destroying me. "This man is not our father," she said. "We don't know who he is." But the real knife in my heart came when she said the next part, the words that would cost her $12 million. "We don't have any relationship with this man. He's nobody to us." Nobody. 32 years of fatherhood, 32 years of sacrifice, love, protection, guidance, 32 years of being the most important person in their lives, and I had become nobody. The security guard was asking to see my identification. Other passengers were staring like I was some kind of criminal. The airline agent was typing notes into her computer, probably flagging me as a security risk, but all I could hear was that word echoing in my head. Nobody. I handed over my ID with trembling fingers, showed my boarding pass, explained quietly that this was my daughter, my son, that I'd paid for their vacation. My voice was barely a whisper. The security guard looked at Ashley. "Ma'am, do you know this man?" She met his eyes without flinching. "I've never seen him before in my life." That's when something inside me died and something else was born. The old Rick Sullivan, the one who made excuses for his children, who rationalized their disrespect, who loved them more than they deserved, died right there in Terminal B. What was born was something harder, colder, more precise. Someone who understood that love has limits and his children had just crossed every one of them. I put my ID back in my wallet, looked at my children one last time. They wouldn't meet my eyes. "Okay," I said quietly. "I understand now." And for the first time in 32 years, I really did. The security guard escorted me away from the gate. Professional but firm, the way they handle disruptions that need to be contained without becoming scenes. "Sir, I'm going to need you to come with me." I went quietly, didn't argue, didn't protest, didn't try to explain. Just walked beside him while my children watched from 30 feet away, probably relieved to see their problem being handled. The security office was small and sterile. Fluorescent lights, metal desk, chairs designed for discomfort. They asked questions I answered honestly. Yes, those were my children. Yes, I'd paid for the vacation. Yes, I had a boarding pass for the same flight. But when they called Kevin to verify my story, he told them what Ashley had coached him to say. I don't know why this man thinks he knows us. We've never seen him before. The security supervisor was apologetic, but clear. Sir, without someone to verify your relationship to these passengers, I can't allow you to board the same flight. It's a safety issue. I arrived at the resort 6 hours after them, not because I gave up, because I booked the next available flight under a different name, used a credit card they'd never seen, one connected to accounts they didn't know existed. By the time I checked into my room, Ashley and Kevin were probably on their second umbrella drinks, congratulating themselves on handling their stalker situation so efficiently. They had no idea their stalker owned stock in the airline that had just banned him. The resort lobby was everything the brochures promised. Marble floors, tropical flowers, the sound of waves through open glass doors. Paradise if you could afford it. Kevin and Ashley were at the concierge desk, planning excursions with their families. They looked relaxed now, happy, like people who'd successfully solved an unpleasant problem. I waited by the elevator bank, just watching them, marveling at how easily they'd adapted to my absence. How quickly they'd moved from denying my existence to enjoying the vacation I'd funded. Ashley was showing the concierge photos on her phone, probably planning the perfect family shots for social media. Kevin was asking about restaurant reservations, wine tastings, couples spa treatments, normal vacation behavior, if you could forget how they'd gotten here. After 20 minutes, I approached the front desk. Different clerk, different shift, fresh chance to see how my children would react to an actual confrontation. Excuse me, I said to the desk manager. I'm trying to reach the Sullivan party. Family emergency. The manager called Kevin over. My son walked across the lobby with confident steps, probably expecting to handle some minor booking issue. When he saw me, his face went white. How did you... He caught himself, looked around the lobby, lowered his voice. Look, I don't know what you want, but we don't know you. Leave us alone. I kept my voice calm, reasonable. Kevin, I'm your father. I paid for this trip. I just want to spend time with my family. He looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Sir, Kevin said, loud enough for other guests to hear, my family and I have never seen you before. You need to stop harassing us. Ashley had joined us now, with baby Emma in her arms, using her child as a shield, like I was some kind of predator. This is the man from the airport, she told the desk manager. The one who's been stalking us. Can you please remove him from the property? The desk manager was already reaching for his phone. Resort security, probably. The same script, different location. I looked at my granddaughter, 3 months old, sleeping peacefully in Ashley's arms, completely unaware that her mother was using her as a prop in this performance. Emma had my eyes, Margaret's nose, the family genetics that connected 3 generations, even if Ashley was pretending we were strangers. That's my granddaughter, I said quietly. Ashley clutched Emma tighter. This man is delusional. Please call the police. The lobby had gone quiet. Other families were watching now, whispering among themselves, creating distance between their children and the dangerous man who was clearly disturbing the peace. I could have fought it. Could have shown them my ID, my booking confirmation, my bank records proving I'd paid for everything. Could have made a scene that would have ruined everyone's vacation. Instead, I went to my room. That night, alone in paradise, I made the phone call that changed everything. Some conversations change everything. This was one of them. By morning, $12 million had a new destination. At 3 a.m, tropical paradise felt like the loneliest place on earth. I sat on my balcony, listening to waves crash against the reef, and realized something profound. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger was too small for what I felt. Too hot, too immediate, too emotional. This was something else, something colder and clearer. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. Free from the illusion that my children loved me. Free from the burden of pretending their disrespect was just busy adult lives. free from the hope that they might change, might grow, might remember what family actually meant. The recording device sat on the table beside my phone. 47 minutes of audio, every word of their denial, their lies, their public humiliation, not because I planned to use it against them, what would be the point, but because I wanted to remember exactly how it felt to become nobody to the people who meant everything to me. Margaret had been right to make me promise. The test had worked perfectly. My children had shown me exactly who they were when they thought it didn't matter, when they thought I was powerless, poor, and dependent on their tolerance. Now they were about to learn who I was when it mattered most. I picked up my phone and scrolled to a number I hadn't called in 2 years. Richard and Associates Emergency Legal Services. This is Rick Sullivan. I need to speak to Tom Richard immediately. Sir, it's 3 in the morning. Tell him it's about the Sullivan Trust revision. He'll take the call. Tom Richard had been my attorney since the business sale in 1995. Handled the trust setup, the investment accounts, the legal structures that kept my wealth invisible to my children. He'd also drafted my original will, the one that left everything to Kevin and Ashley, the one I was about to destroy. Rick? Tom's voice was thick with sleep. What's going on? I'm in Bora Bora, and I need emergency will revision. Tonight. Are you dying? Not fast enough, apparently. I told him what had happened. The airport, the resort, the public humiliation. Tom listened without interrupting, his breathing the only sound on the line. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Rick, are you sure about this? Disinheriting your children is permanent. There's no coming back from... Tom, they told 50 strangers I wasn't their father. They denied knowing me. They used my granddaughter as a prop to make me look dangerous. Okay, but emergency revisions require specific procedures. I'll need video confirmation, witnesses, medical clearance to prove you're competent. How long? 72 hours. But the will was just the beginning. There's something else, Tom. I want to establish a new primary beneficiary. Who? St. Jude Children's Hospital. Silence on the other end. Tom had helped me establish the original trust when Kevin was 12 and Ashley was 9. Back when they were still children who hugged my legs and called me daddy and told me they loved me every night before bed. The entire $12 million? Except for $1 each to Kevin and Ashley. Legal requirement to show I didn't forget them, right? Rick, that's... Yes, technically that works, but are you absolutely certain? Tom, I spent 30 years raising children who grew up to be ashamed of their father, who see me as an embarrassment to be hidden, denied, removed from their lives. Why would I leave my life's work to people who wish I didn't exist? The words came out calm, measured. No emotion, no anger, just fact. St. Jude Hospital takes care of children whose parents would give anything for more time with them. Children whose families pray every day for the gift of growing up together. That's where my money belongs, with people who understand what family really means. I'll start the paperwork immediately. Good. And Tom, I want to record a video message for Kevin and Ashley, something they can watch after I'm gone, something that explains their inheritance. The children were about to learn what they had really lost. By Thursday morning, the legal machinery was already in motion. Tom had worked through the night drafting documents, arranging video conferences, coordinating with notaries in 3 time zones. The trust revision was surprisingly simple, elegant even. Kevin Sullivan, $1. Ashley Sullivan Brooks, $1. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, $11,999,998. While they enjoyed their stolen vacation, I was rewriting their future. I signed the papers via video conference at 9 a.m. Bora Bora time. Tom had arranged for the Hotel Business Center to serve as a temporary legal office. 2 resort employees served as witnesses, watching me sign away my children's inheritance with steady hands and a clear mind. Are you making this decision freely, Mr. Sullivan? The notary asked through the laptop screen. Completely freely. Do you understand the permanent nature of this revision? I understand that my children have made their choice about our relationship. I'm simply making mine. The documents were filed electronically within the hour. Backup copies sent to 3 different law firms. The trust restructuring was irrevocable, immediate, and legally bulletproof. In the space of 1 morning, Kevin and Ashley had gone from inheriting millions to inheriting pocket change. They were probably at the beach by now, sipping drinks I'd paid for, laughing about how efficiently they'd handled their stalker problem. But I had one more surprise they never saw coming. The video message took 6 takes to get right. Sitting in my hotel room, laptop camera focused on my face, trying to find the right words for the children who no longer claimed me as their father. How do you say goodbye to people who've already said goodbye to you? Take 1 was too angry. Take 2 was too sad. Take 3, I started crying halfway through and had to stop. By take 6, I'd found the right tone. Calm, factual, educational. Kevin and Ashley, if you're watching this, it means I'm gone and you've just learned about your inheritance, or lack thereof. I explained everything. The business sale they'd never known about. The money I'd saved and invested for 30 years. The test I'd designed to measure their love. The spectacular way they'd failed it. I want you to understand something, I said to the camera. This isn't punishment. This is just consequences. You told everyone at the airport that I was nobody to you. You denied knowing me. You used my granddaughter to make me look dangerous. But I had one more surprise they never saw coming. The real revelation wasn't about money. It was about time. There's something else you should know, I continued. Something I should have told you months ago. I'm dying. 3 words that changed everything about their behavior. 3 words that transformed their cruelty from disappointing to unforgivable. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors gave me 6 months. That was 4 months ago. I paused, letting that sink in for whoever would eventually watch this recording. The Bora Bora trip wasn't just a vacation. It was my chance to spend my final months with the people I loved most. My chance to see my granddaughter in paradise. My chance to create one last perfect memory with my family. The words came out steady, controlled. No self-pity, just fact. Instead, you used my dying months to publicly humiliate me, to deny I existed, to make sure everyone around us knew how ashamed you were to be associated with me. I looked directly into the camera. St. Jude Children's Hospital will receive my life savings because they understand something you've forgotten. They know that time with family is the most precious gift anyone can have. They know that children and parents belong together, especially when that time is running out. I had found my real family. Not the one I'd raised, but the one that understood what love actually looked like. You'll never see this money, I continued. But more importantly, you'll never see me again. The video was uploaded to a private cloud account with instructions for delivery. Tom would send them the link after my funeral, after they'd had time to process the loss they'd chosen for themselves. I spent my remaining time in Bora Bora doing something I should have done years ago, taking care of myself, sleeping late, eating good food, watching sunsets without checking my phone for messages that never came. Kevin and Ashley were somewhere on the same island, enjoying their vacation, probably posting photos on social media, telling friends about their amazing family trip, maybe even mentioning how peaceful it was without any drama or complications. They had no idea their financial future had just been transferred to sick children in Memphis. On Saturday, I flew back to Boston alone, not because I was defeated, but because I was complete. The test was over. The results were final. There was nothing left to discover about my children's character. The house felt different when I got home, cleaner somehow, less cluttered with false hopes and wasted expectations. I packed up their childhood photos, their school projects, their Christmas stockings. Not out of anger, but out of acceptance. These were artifacts of relationships that no longer existed. I left them one last gift, the truth. But by then, it was already too late to matter. Monday morning, I started disappearing, not dramatically, not with threats or ultimatums or final confrontations. I just began the quiet process of removing myself from their lives as completely as they'd removed me from theirs. First, I changed my phone number. 32 years of being available whenever they needed something, and now my children would get a number-disconnected message if they ever bothered to call. Then I closed my checking account at the bank where Ashley worked as a customer. Moved everything to a different institution across town. No reason to make their professional life awkward with reminders of family they'd rather forget. I canceled my newspaper subscription, stopped my mail delivery, arranged for utility shutoffs. The house would be sold within the month. Tom was handling the paperwork. The proceeds would go to St. Jude along with everything else. They wouldn't realize I was gone until checkout. That's exactly how I wanted it. No drama, no scenes, no opportunities for them to explain or apologize or make me feel guilty for protecting myself. They'd made their choice at the airport. I was nobody to them. Fine. From now on, they'd be nobody to me. By Wednesday, I was living in a furnished apartment near Boston Children's Hospital, volunteering in the pediatric wing, teaching sick kids to play checkers, reading stories to children whose parents would give anything for more time together. The call from Kevin came on Thursday. I saw his name on my old phone, the one I hadn't turned in yet, and let it go to voicemail. Then I listened to the message while sitting in my empty apartment. Dad, it's Kevin. Ashley and I have been trying to reach you since we got back from Bora Bora. We need to talk. There are some things. Look, just call me back, okay? It's important. His voice sounded different, smaller somehow, less confident than the man who denied knowing me in front of 50 strangers. Ashley called 2 hours later. Daddy? The word hit like a physical blow. She hadn't called me Daddy in 15 years. Daddy, where are you? We went to the house and you're not there. Your neighbor said you moved? That doesn't make sense. Why would you move without telling us? They had no idea what was waiting for them at home. 3 days later, Ashley called again. Dad, this is getting scary. No one's heard from you. Ryan thinks we should call the police. At least call me back so I know you're alive. By Friday, Kevin was leaving messages that sounded close to panic. Dad, whatever's going on, we can work it out. Just please call me back, please. But there was nothing left to work out. The children at Boston Children's Hospital didn't care that I was a plumber who'd never been to college. They didn't care about my clothes or my accent or whether I fit their aesthetic. They just cared that I showed up. Every Tuesday and Thursday I'd sit in the playroom with kids who were fighting cancer, reading books and playing games and listening to stories about their families. Real families. The kind where parents slept in hospital chairs for weeks at a time, where siblings donated bone marrow without question, where love was measured by presence rather than presence. 8-year-old Maya had leukemia and parents who'd sold their house to pay for treatment. She taught me to play Pokemon cards. 10-year-old James had brain cancer and a father who hadn't left the hospital in 6 weeks. He taught me the difference between good dinosaurs and scary dinosaurs. These children were dying, and their families treasured every moment together. Meanwhile, my healthy adult children had spent our last potential time together denying I existed. The irony wasn't lost on me. Meanwhile, an envelope was being delivered to Kevin's law office, a certified letter requiring signature, containing legal documents that would change everything he thought he knew about his father. The children I'd raised were about to discover what I'd found at the hospital, that real love doesn't care about aesthetics. Sullivan versus Sullivan Estate Revision. Please sign here, sir. Kevin stared at the courier holding the clipboard. Legal messenger services usually brought good news to his office. New clients, settlement agreements, partnership documents. This felt different. The envelope was thick, formal, with Tom Richards' law firm return address. Tom had been his father's lawyer for decades, but Kevin had never received direct correspondence from him. Is this about my father? Kevin asked. Can't say, sir. Just need your signature. Kevin signed with the same gold pen he used for million-dollar contracts, but his hand was shaking slightly. It had been 2 weeks since he'd heard from his father. 2 weeks of unanswered calls, empty houses, neighbors who claimed Rick had moved away suddenly. The envelope felt heavy in his hands. Too heavy for simple legal notifications. The envelope that would change everything. Ashley arrived 20 minutes after Kevin's frantic phone call. She brought baby Emma and Ryan, like she was preparing for some kind of family crisis. What's so urgent that I had to leave work? She demanded. Kevin held up the unopened envelope. Legal documents about Dad. What kind of legal documents? I don't know. I was waiting for you. They sat in Kevin's corner office overlooking Boston Harbor and stared at the envelope like it might explode. Kevin opened it first. The cover letter was brief and professional. Dear Mr. Kevin Sullivan and Mrs. Ashley Brooks, please find enclosed the revised last will and testament of Richard Sullivan, executed on date in Bora Bora, French Polynesia. This revision supersedes all previous estate planning documents. Per your father's instructions, this notification is being delivered following his relocation and cessation of contact with immediate family members. Questions regarding the estate should be directed to our office. Sincerely, Thomas Richard, Estate Attorney. Kevin's hands were trembling as he turned to the actual will documents. Legal language, lots of whereas and heretofore, but the important part was crystal clear. To my son, Kevin Sullivan, I leave the sum of $1. $1. To my daughter, Ashley Brooks, I leave the sum of $1. $1. To St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, I leave the remainder of my estate, valued at approximately $12 million. $12 million. The papers slipped from Kevin's hands and scattered across his mahogany desk. Ashley picked up one of the pages, reading the numbers again. $12 million. Dad had $12 million. Kevin was staring at the wall behind his desk, where his law degree hung in its expensive frame. He was never poor, he whispered. All those years we thought he was just a broke plumber. But there was one more document in the envelope. A USB drive with a label in Rick's handwriting. For Kevin and Ashley, watch alone. Ashley's hands were shaking as she held the USB drive. What do you think is on here? I don't want to know, Kevin said. I don't want to know any of this. But Ryan was already moving toward Kevin's laptop. We need to watch it. Whatever's on here, we need to see it. They gathered around the computer screen like children about to watch a horror movie. Ashley was clutching Emma so tightly the baby started crying. The video file opened to show Rick sitting in a hotel room. Not their father's familiar kitchen or living room, but some generic business hotel space with tropical light filtering through the windows. He looked tired, older than they remembered, but his voice was steady. Kevin and Ashley, if you're watching this, it means I'm gone and you've just learned about your inheritance, or lack thereof. Ashley made a choking sound. Kevin just stared at the screen. Rick continued speaking to the camera like he was having a conversation with them, explaining the business sale they'd never known about, the money he'd saved for 30 years, the test he'd designed to measure their love. I want you to understand something. This isn't punishment. This is just consequences. Then he played audio from the airport, their voices clear as day, denying they knew him, calling him mentally unstable, using baby Emma as a prop to make him look dangerous. Ashley hit play with shaking hands and heard herself saying, "We don't have any relationship with this man. He's nobody to us." The audio played for 27 minutes. Every word they'd said at the airport, every lie they'd told at the resort, every moment of their calculated cruelty. Kevin buried his face in his hands. Ashley was crying silently, baby Emma sleeping peacefully in her arms. When the audio ended, Rick looked directly into the camera. "There's something else you should know. Something I should have told you months ago." Ashley grabbed Kevin's arm. They both knew what was coming. "I'm dying. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The doctors gave me 6 months. That was 4 months ago." The words hit the office like physical blows. Ashley doubled over like she'd been punched. Kevin made a sound that wasn't quite words. The Bora Bora trip wasn't just a vacation. It was my chance to spend my final months with the people I loved most. My chance to see my granddaughter in paradise. Rick's voice remained steady, controlled. No anger, no self-pity, just facts. Instead, you used my dying months to publicly humiliate me, to deny I existed, to make sure everyone around us knew how ashamed you were to be associated with me. Ashley was sobbing now. "Turn it off," she whispered. "Please turn it off." But Kevin couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't process that they'd spent their father's final months treating him like a stranger. And there was one final revelation waiting. The thing that would haunt them forever. "You'll never see this money," Rick continued from the laptop screen. "But more importantly, you'll never see me again." He held up a photograph. Ashley and Kevin as children, maybe 6 and 9 years old, sitting on his shoulders at some long-forgotten beach vacation. All three of them laughing, covered in sand, looking like the happiest family in the world. I kept this picture on my desk for 30 years. Every morning when I woke up, every night before bed, I'd look at it and remember why I worked so hard, why I saved so much, why everything I did was for you. He set the photo down gently. St. Jude Children's Hospital will receive my life savings because they understand something you've forgotten. Time with family is the most precious gift anyone can have. Rick looked directly into the camera one last time. Love cannot be purchased, and when you lose it, no money can buy it back. The video ended. The office was completely silent except for Ashley's quiet crying and baby Emma's soft breathing. Kevin tried calling their father's number immediately. Disconnected. He called the old house. New owners. Ashley drove to the neighborhood where they'd grown up, Emma in her car seat searching for any sign of where Rick might have gone. The neighbors told her he'd moved out weeks ago. No forwarding address. They hired a private investigator. Kevin used his legal connections. Ashley called hospitals, retirement homes, anywhere an elderly man might go when he wanted to disappear. 3 weeks later, they found him. Not in a nursing home or assisted living facility, but volunteering in the pediatric cancer ward at Boston Children's Hospital. Reading stories to sick children. Playing board games with kids whose parents never left their bedsides. Ashley watched him through the window, holding baby Emma, seeing her father surrounded by children who weren't his but who clearly loved him. But Rick had one final message. When he saw them watching, he didn't acknowledge their presence. He just kept reading to the children who appreciated his time. The last message came through Tom Richards' office 6 months later. A single photograph, no letter. Rick in the hospital playroom surrounded by children in wheelchairs and hospital gowns. All of them smiling, laughing at something he'd just said. Real laughter, genuine joy. In the corner of the photo, someone had written 2 sentences in Rick's familiar handwriting. True wealth cannot be inherited. It must be earned through love. Some lessons cost more than money can buy. By then, Kevin and Ashley had learned that their father had died peacefully in his sleep the week before, surrounded by his hospital family, children and parents who'd become his chosen family in the final months of his life. The funeral was small, just the hospital staff and the families he'd helped. Kevin and Ashley stood in the back, unwelcome strangers at their own father's service. Rick had found what he'd been looking for all along, a family that valued time together more than money, a family that understood what love actually looked like. He died knowing his money would help children whose parents treasured every moment with them, while his own children learned that some inheritances can't be measured in dollars.